What woman wants to cover themselves in a black cloth, especially it's 35 degrees yesterday in London. This is not our culture. If you want to go around in a black cloth, then go back to the country where that is their culture.
Well, first of all, I think you're being dishonest. I think you then said that I wanted to be a broader issue about face covering.
Absolutely.
That's not what you said.
Yeah, I've said that
You knew what you were doing. The audience listening knows what you were doing. Mm-hmm. I know what you were doing. You were feeding and pandering.
I'll be honest, when she first got up in Parliament and called for a ban on the burqa as her first question, I thought she could have asked something more profound than that. But she said that issue was very important to the people she represents, so fair enough. What I find fascinating, though, is you always hear these horror stories of Westerners being arrested and jailed in the Middle East for trivial stuff we consider no crime at all. But under Islamic law, it's a serious offence. Everyone is quick to shout their country, their rules. Fair enough. But guess what? We are well within our rights to say our country, our rules. Women are forced to cover up in the Middle East. So if we don't want people covering their faces in our country, then that's our right. These people choose to move here. We never ask them to. If they can't respect our customs, then find some other country to move to. Some will say, yes, but what separates us from these authoritarian Islamic nations is our liberal values and freedoms. Well, to some extent that is true, but with immigration as high as it is, it means our liberal values will be our downfall, and they are working against us. Millions of people should not be just able to move here, bring alien customs, and we just allow them to do so and do whatever they want because of liberal freedoms. Believe me, if we keep allowing that, then they will replace our customs with their customs. And I doubt very much they'll show us the same level of tolerance. I did disagree with Sarah Potchin, however, when she suggested banning the burqa will liberate these oppressed women. No, not necessarily. We shouldn't assume all these women share our values. Some of them are every bit the fanatical Islamist as the men are. If they all want to wear the burqa, they don't need liberating. They just need not to be imported in the first place. I have zero problem with the burqa if it's in small numbers. But if loads of women are walking around in it, it becomes too much. Again, all problems can be traced back to mass immigration. Stop importing such high numbers of people from radically different cultures, and we don't have to spend time having these silly debates. We weren't debating banning the burqas or not in the 1930s before we imported this extreme form of multiculturalism. And let's be clear, it's not just burqas. All face coverings should be banned, especially feral youth going around in balaclavas. Predictably, the rest of the panel attacks the Reform MP in this clip. Take a listen.
Why did you choose that?
Because I wanted to, well, first of all, massive issue in the by-election with asylum seekers, immigration, and the threat to women's safety, the cultural integration in the society. So there's that whole issue. But also I wanted to raise the point of public safety. The fact is that our police have a tough job as it is. All face coverings. I've actually widened and always meant it to be a question about face coverings, except when you're making a point and in Parliament and you've got a few minutes to do it, then ban the burqa was everyone remembers those words. But the point is, face coverings in this country should be banned on the grounds of public safety and on the grounds of, in my view, suppression of women. This is not our culture.
If a woman chooses to do it,
I don't buy that argument. What woman?
Well, some women do.
What woman?
As Ali will, I'm sure,
can I just say, please, my point of view, which is what you're asking, what woman wants to cover themselves in a black cloth, especially it's 35 degrees yesterday in London. This is not our culture. If you want to go around in a black cloth, then go back to the country where that is their culture. But we don't want it here.
There are many British-born Muslims who wear the face covering.
I know. I went campaigning in Bolton in 2017, and I went up and down streets, and women would not speak to me, are frightened to speak to me.
We've only got 3 minutes left on this. Ali?
Well, first of all, I think you're being dishonest. I think when you said that you intended for it to be all face covering, you didn't. You went up in your very first speech, didn't talk about the NHS, didn't talk about the economy, didn't talk about housing, didn't talk about the plethora of issues that seriously affects your constituents.
I talked about one of the biggest issues in my... for my constituents, this is one of the biggest issues.
How many members of your constituency? How many members of your constituency wear the burqa? How many people in your constituency wear the burqa?
Society.
How many people in your constituency
I'm telling to you that one of the biggest issues raised on me on the doorstep was the cultural integration of foreigners in places like Runcorn and Helsby, and that was a big issue for my constituents, which is why I raised it.
Yes, but the question is how many... You raised the burqa. You then said that I wanted to be a broader issue about face covering.
Absolutely.
That's not what you said.
Yeah, I've said that ever
You knew
since.
what you were doing. The audience listening knows what you were doing. I know what you were doing. You were feeding and pandering to an increasingly divisive conversation because you knew it would play well for you for your political base. The reality is, if you're talking about crime in the burqa, let's look at what the National Crime Agency say, what the police say, what continuous organisations who study this say, and not one of them says this is a significant problem that needs to be fixed.
I want to bring Steve in. Steve,
Ian, if I may, just one other thing.
We've literally got 2 minutes left, Ali. Steve, you used to represent a constituency with a very high Muslim population.
Yeah, about 20% of the constituency, British Muslims, about a third would vote Conservative. So I make 3 points. First, everyone, without exception, should be prepared to show their face when it is relevant for security.
And they do.
And they do, without exception. Second, people confuse the burqa, niqab and the hijab. And forgive me, I think Sarah's saying burqa when she means niqab, and she might want to ban the niqab. Some people want to ban the hijab. But what I'd say is the hijab is scarcely any different to what a nun would wear, and nobody's talking about banning that. So I think the crucial point here is people should be prepared to show their face. But the third point I'd make, which to me is really the bottom line, in a free society, politicians ought not to be in the business of telling women to wear clothes which are more or less demure by their own judgment. Some women are choosing to wear the hijab or indeed the niqab for religious reasons because they don't wish to inspire men to temptation. And I don't want to be there, but others do, and I think they should be free to take those views. But as long as they're prepared to show their face when it's relevant for security reasons.
Jim?
I think the fact that Sarah, in trying to justify herself, has used the term foreigners and go back to the country you came from, I think tells us that she's pursuing a divisive agenda designed to pick on a minority. And I don't think that's really where we need to go if we're trying to encourage integration.
Final word from you.
Standing up for British values and what the people of this country want to claim back, and that's our culture.
OK.